This is Advanced Math 2.2 notes. That's Advanced Math, Unit 2, Lesson 2. The title is Solving Rational and Negative Exponential Equations. And I left this spot here because from now on I would like you to start putting your ID card in with your notes. So you can put it sideways like this, take your picture, PDF it, and turn it in. Okay, we are going to move on. Number 1, 14 over x minus 6 equals 1/2 plus 6 over x minus 8. Okay, so remember, first thing we always do is find our restrictions. And in this case, our restrictions are x cannot equal 6 because 6 minus 6 is 0. 8 because 8 minus 8 is 0, and there's no restrictions here because there's no variable in the denominator. Alright, so those are my restrictions. I'm going to go through, and since it is a fractional equation, again, that's an equation with fractions and has an equal sign there, so we know it is an equation. I can clear it just like I would a complex fraction. If it was like that, I would have to multiply only by what's missing to find a common denominator, and I'd still end up with a fraction. But since there's an equal sign, excuse me, I'm going to multiply by everything by the same thing, and it's going to clear all the fraction part of it. It'll still be an equation, but not a fractional equation. Okay, my common denominator is 2x minus 6, x minus 8, 2x minus 6, x minus 8, 2x minus 6, x minus 8. Okay, so the x minus 6 reduced, and you have 2 times 14 is 28. I'll distribute to the x plus 8 on my next step. Equals 2 reduces, and you have x minus 6 times x plus 8, and that is a minus 8. And I'll distribute that on my next step. Plus x minus 8 reduces, and 6 times 2 is 12. Times x minus 6, and again I'll distribute that on my next step. So there's a lot of work going on here. We have to distribute the 12, we have to double distribute, and then we have to distribute the 28. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. 28 times x is 28x, plus 28 times 8 is 224, and I did write this as a plus 8, and it should have been a minus. I'm going to fix that now, and I almost did it over here, but I did fix it. Okay, so my apologies. There we go. Equals, and when you double distribute that, you get x squared minus 14x plus 48, plus distribute that, 12x minus 72. Again, a lot of work, I know. All right, now I'm going to combine like terms here and get everything to one side because there is an x squared, which means I'm going to factor and solve. 28x minus 224 equals x squared minus 2x minus 24. And now I'm going to get everything over to the other side. Minus 28x minus 28x. I'm going to make sure I line them up with their like terms. Plus 224. 0 equals x squared minus 30x plus 200. 0 equals double bubble. I know it's going to be the same signs, minus minus or plus plus, because that's the only way to get a positive. And so it's going to be minus minus because the neighbor tells me that they are both negative. And you list your factors of 200, and you try this and you try that. It's going to be 20 and 10, because negative 20 times negative 10 is positive 200, and when you do inside outside you get negative 30. Set them both equal to 0 and solve. You get x equals 20 and x equals 10, and neither one of them are my restrictions, so this is my answer. Now again, if you have time, you can go back and check by plugging in, but if you're confident in your work and it doesn't conflict with your restrictions, then you're good. Okay, number 2. 3x to the negative second minus 10x to the negative first plus 8 equals 0. Okay, this one up here was kind of a review of what we did last week. This one here is a little bit different. I'm going to cover that equals 0. This is similar to what we did last unit, where we'd make everything a fraction. There's going to be two separate fractions because there's a minus sign. If that was multiplication, you can make one big fraction. I'm going to cover all of that. You could move everything to the bottom at once, but whenever you have plus or minus signs, remember they are individual fractions. 3 is not negative, so that's staying. 10, it does not have a negative exponent, so that's staying. And then you can put 8 over 1. You don't have to. I'm just making it a fraction. All right. My restriction is x cannot equal 0. And that is because that is the only number that would make a 0 in the denominator. 0 squared is 0, 10 over 0. That has no variable, so it doesn't count. And anything over 0 is undefined. All right. We are going to clear by multiplying everything by the common denominator, which is x squared, reduces, and you're left with 3 minus 10x plus 8x squared equals 0. And you could factor backwards. I'm going to rearrange, especially since the 8 is positive. 8x squared minus 10x plus 3. Again, you could factor backwards if you like. Positive 8x squared minus 10x plus 3, positive 3. And then double bubble, and you can use 8 and 1 or 2 and 4. I'm going to do 2 and 4, 2x and 4x. Seeing where I want to put the 3, maybe out here to get a 6 and a 1 and a negative and a negative, negative 4x, negative, that should be a 3, sorry. Negative 4x, negative 6x, and that gives me the negative 10x in the middle. And we are ready to solve. 2x minus 1 equals 0. 4x minus 3 equals 0. You can put it on pause and work it through. You add the 1, divide by 2. You get 1/2. You add the 3, divide by 4. You get 3/4. And it's not one of our restrictions, so this answer is good. All right. Number 3. Number 3 is a tricky one. It's one that kids do struggle with on the test. And so I'm going to put that here. Again, kids do struggle with this one on the test, so you want to be careful with it. And let's work it out, or write it out. 1 over x plus 2 squared plus 1 over x plus 2 minus 6 equals 0. Okay, let's first talk about our restrictions. Our restrictions are x cannot equal negative 2, and that's the only number that's going to make my denominator 0. Negative 2 plus 0 is 0, 0 squared is 0, and 1 over 0 is undefined. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0, 1 over 0 is undefined. This one has a 1 underneath, but there's no variable, so it doesn't count. Okay, before you go through and clear, a suggestion I have, this is not the only way to do it, but this is a suggestion. When you see like this is an x plus 2 and that is an x plus 2 squared, I'm going to flip this over really quick. Like this was an x minus 6 and that was an x minus 8. There was nothing really related there. But when you see this where they're the same, where one is squared and one is not, my suggestion is to use u substitution from the get-go. You don't have to, but I would suggest it, and there's a reason why. I will show you in class why, but for now I'm going to tell you to just use u substitution, and in class I will explain why it's easier on the eyes to do it from the get-go. Not necessary, but easier. Okay, so 1 over u squared plus 1 over u minus 6 over 1 equals 0. I'm going to multiply everything by u squared. All right, I end up with 1 plus That reduces to u minus 6u squared equals 0. And there's a few ways of doing this. You can factor backwards. You could add everything to the other side. I'm just going to do that. So that the 6 becomes positive. Or you could divide everything by a -1. 0 equals positive 6u squared minus u minus 1. I'm going to use 2u and 3u, 1 and 1, and I'm going to make this a negative and that a plus and see if it works. -3, positive 2, -1, it does. And you solve. I'm going to go ahead and set them equal to 0. 2u minus 1 equals 0. 3u plus 1 equals 0. Now you could solve for u and then plug in, or plug in now. I'm going to plug in now because if I solve for u I get fractions. U equals 1/2 and u equals -1/3, and then I'm going to be plugging in and working with fractions, and I'd rather not. You can, but I'd rather not. So I'm going to plug the u back in now. 2u minus 1 equals 0. 3u plus 1 equals 0. And u was x plus 2. And x plus 2. And yes, there's some like this on the test. 2x plus 4 minus 1 equals 0. 2x plus 3 equals 0. Subtract the 3, divide by the 2. X equals -3/2. All right, here I get 3x plus 6. So I still end up with a fraction answer, and that's fine, but I didn't have to work with finding common denominators and fractions from the get-go. Okay, 3x plus 6 plus 1, so 3x plus 7 equals 0. Subtract the 7, divide the 3, you get -7/3, and none of them are part of my restrictions, so we are good. X equals -3/2, comma -7/3, and those are our two solutions. All right. We'll definitely discuss more of these in class because it does come up and kids often struggle with it. All right, that is it for this lesson. Don't forget ID card when you take a picture and turn it in. All right, that's it.